Californian is available on your Kindle Fire? Or how about Google's Nexus 7, the Nook? You bet. You can also read a full replica of the newspaper on your Android-powered smartphone, on Apple's iPhone, or on your laptop. We have a solution for any device. E-Edition is free for subscribers, or just $7.99 a month. The Bakersfield Californian. We're everywhere and anytime. Subscribe today. Bakersfield.com.
From the Dignity Health Studios of the Bakersfield Californian, it's time to open up with real people and real talk about real stuff. And now, a special welcome to our friends throughout California, across the nation, and around the world to this week's edition of Open Up.
And here we are, Don Clark here.
And I am definitely not Tina. I'm Bob Prater.
Tina is sitting off camera today. Bob's here for a special reason. A great friend of mine, a guy that I always learn from. And Bob, every time I'm with you, I always come away challenged and learning something new I didn't know before. So great to have you.
Well, those are really kind words. I appreciate that, Don. Thanks.
Did you hear that English accent on?
I did. What in the world was that?
That's Vanessa Claridge. Isn't that a great English name? Vanessa Claridge. She's 16 years. She's been George Martin's executive assistant. And so she agreed to, because we...
Whoa. Wait a minute. Oh, not the George Martin I'm thinking of?
George Martin, the attorney.
Oh, see, I'm thinking George Martin of the Beatles.
Oh.
Well, I mean, come on, the producer of the Beatles. But okay, still, George Martin here in the city is a pretty big deal.
You can see the generational difference.
Well, no, I know George. I don't know the other George, but I know this. She was English, right?
She's English.
So, of course, I would make that connection, George Martin of the Beatles. Okay.
You bet. All right.
Whatever.
Vanessa, great gal. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about our sexuality. We are all sexual beings, and we're going to talk about where we find struggles in our sexuality, challenges in our sexuality, how to find identity and meaning and fulfillment in our sexuality. Many have already achieved that and are happy where they are, but we want to talk today about a specific niche of our sexuality, and that's kind of unwanted sexual attraction. And not attraction toward yourself, but when you're attracted to others in a way you don't want to be attracted, where heterosexual men are attracted to just every woman that they see and don't want to be more pure in heart, more noble in heart. And to help us walk through this, we have a very special friend today, Philip Lee. Philip Lee has his own very unique journey, and out of that journey has come a very unique ministry, and controversial in many ways, but in many ways very powerful. Bob has his own perspectives on this, so I think we've got a good mix going here. So Philip, why don't you just start us off by talking about where your journey started, and so we've got a framework to deal with here.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me. As you've already said, this is a very, very important topic that we're going to be addressing this morning. I, like many others, many years ago had an issue of same-sex attraction. I lived for 17 years as a gay-identified man in the formidable gay communities of San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York City, and Bakersfield as well. However, 28 years ago, specifically on October 5th, 1985, after 17 years once again as living as a gay-identified man, I surrendered my life to Christ and everything changed, including my sexuality. As a result, fast forward many years, some 20 years ago, God saw fit to birth his ministry called His Way Out Ministries. We have our home base of operation right here in Bakersfield, but also extensions now of His Way Out Ministries in the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana, South America. We are a Christian-based ministry, believing that with God all things are possible, and that includes freedom from same-sex attraction. I'm a living example of that, not unlike, once again, a multitude of other men and women around the world that have experienced transformation in their sexuality.
The question I would have is that when one is struggling with one's sexuality, and some would say, well, just don't struggle. Live with it. Be what you are. And my question would be, Philip, to be a self-identified man in the gay community, how can you just change your identity in that area?
It's not reaching up and flipping a switch by any stretch of the imagination. When one has experienced living in the gay lifestyle, as many refer to it in terms of homosexuality, when you've been in that behavior, that identity, lifestyle for such a long period of time, those issues are not resolved overnight. We don't arrive in our broken places in life overnight. It's really unrealistic to expect that everything's going to be resolved overnight. I don't know of an individual, male or female, that's resolved this aspect of their life apart from a deep, genuine, personal, intimate relationship with Christ. When I surrendered my life to Christ, I entered into a process. We're all in the process of becoming more like Christ. And we start talking about process, we're always talking about an element of time. How much time is it going to take? It really differs from person to person. But I do believe this, that in terms of resolving same-sex attraction, I really do believe that there's a level of surrender that's required that many today are just simply unwilling to offer. It takes full, unconditional surrender to Christ.
Bob?
This is fascinating to me, and I have to confess, I've walked this road not as a gay man, but I've walked with gay men. Too numerous to count. I can't even remember how many men have come to me, and many times I've been the first person that they have confided in, I'm gay. And so I've walked this path with many, and so I hear exactly what you're saying. But this transformation process, I believe that God is able to do complete and total miracles, but I've still yet to encounter anyone. Are you married?
No, I'm single.
Okay. Are you attracted to women?
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Then you are the first for me. I promise you. And so this is really an interesting dynamic for me today to be here, and I consider it a great privilege, and I'm very honored to be able to spend time with you because if you found something that I can use, I probably meet with 20 men right now that struggle with same-sex attraction. So if you found some things, I'm completely ready to hear what you have to say. But I have thoughts. So, but at this point in time, you never did marry.
No, I've remained single. I came very close to becoming married at one point, but I've elected to remain single, as have many other men and women. Some others have gone on to marry and have families.
Right. How many men, and do you also deal with women, or is it only men?
Primarily, it is with men.
Okay.
My being a male, I believe the appropriate scenario is that men minister with men,
Right.
ladies with ladies. That said, because we do offer biblical discipleship, mentoring,
Right.
workshops, seminars, we do offer a variety of support groups that also include women, but my role primarily is ministering with men.
Do you deal primarily with the issue of homosexuality, or do you deal with all elements of sexual brokenness?
All elements of sexual brokenness.
Oh, I like that.
Primarily, though, our primary focus is same-sex attraction. We believe this, that when you're broke, you're broke.
Right.
But God remains in the fixing business.
Right. Yeah, I believe that.
Now, but so many would say, with great conviction, simply being gay doesn't mean you're broke.
There are many, certainly, that have that belief. And I can relate to this on a very, very personal level. When I was in the gay community, I never at one single time in my entire life ever had any Christian approach me and say, you know, Philip, there's a way out of that. And I think it's very, very tragic because I really think today people need to know that at least they have an option. You do not have to be gay. There is a way out.
What about those, Philip, that don't want a way out, that are there where they feel they really are, that's their true identity, that's where they're finding their real sexual and personal and emotional fulfillment and meaning? What about those?
And certainly that is the individual's choice. God's given us free will choice. He sets before us the direction in life we choose to travel. He doesn't force himself upon us. He doesn't force us to make right choices. But I really do believe that God within his word has been so crystal clear about setting well-defined holy boundary lines for us to live within, because I believe he's trying to protect us from unseen danger.
Right.
But we all have free will choice. It is the individual's choice whether or not they want to address their same-sex attraction or not.
So it's your conviction that it is a matter of choice, not a matter of genetics or simply God-given makeup.
Today, there is no scientific evidence to support the born that way theory. I believe, as many others do, that we are definitely talking about an acquired behavior, and any acquired behavior can become unacquired. Also, let me share this, that I do believe that as a faithful follower of Christ, for any faithful follower of Christ to say they were born that way is a direct contradiction of Scripture.
I have read very powerful accounts, at least struck me as very powerful accounts of men who, from their earliest dawnings of any sexual inclination, have been attracted to boys, to males, not to women. That was their earliest attraction, and yet love the Lord as they've grown, love the Lord. And how do you? Surely you've encountered such people. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And it makes perfect sense for any man or woman to say, you know, I've had these feelings, I've had these temptations, I've had these thoughts, I've leaned that way for as far back as I can go. So I must have been born this way.
All right.
Well, once again, that contradicts Scripture. And I think two very important scriptural truths that often are dismissed when talking about how does same-sex attraction occur. The Bible tells us very clearly we are all born into a fallen world. We all struggle with a sinful nature. Those are biblical facts. What does that tell us? We're all broken. No exceptions. And our brokenness is going to manifest differently from person to person to person. Now consider the possibility of family dynamics. In my case, my parents divorced when I was 2.5. I did not have, in those important formative years, masculine influence in my life. What about the possibility of peer pressure, the temperament and the interest of the individual, the possibility of abuse, sexual, mental, emotional? Those are two huge elements to consider just to sweep under the rug.
So we've got to take a break. I've got some questions that I'd like to ask along those lines when we return in just a moment.
All right.
We do our research.
We're shoppers.
I was hoping I could save money with Personal Express insurance.
We've had other quotes from other companies.
And in shopping around, it was the best price.
When she actually ran the numbers, I was shocked at the savings that I had.
I have checked around. Personal Express insurance is less. They have great rates.
They're one of the lowest around that I've found.
Nobody can beat Personal Express Insurance.
Low rates with the local advantage. That's Personal Express.
The new book is out. That was easy. I would title this thing sort of a description of what raising children is like. You know, that was easy. I've been writing columns now for about 25 years. Writing has always been a conversation. You're taking somebody by the hand for 3 or 4 minutes and you're not letting go. The new book, That Was Easy. Nothing easy about any of this, but we've had some fun, and I hope you guys will have some fun looking at this book.
Introducing TBC Mobile from the Bakersfield, California. The most complete news, sports, weather, video, opinion, and lifestyle coverage in Bakersfield and Kern County. It's the easiest way to stay up to date on all things local while on the go. Read it on your smartphone or tablet. Download now by searching Bakersfield Californian in the Apple, Google, and Amazon app stores.
The Bakersfield Californian is a great read on the iPad, but did you know that the Bakersfield Californian is available on your Kindle Fire? Or how about Google's Nexus 7, the Nook? You bet. You can also read a full replica of the newspaper on your Android-powered smartphone, on Apple's iPhone, or on your laptop. We have a solution for any device. E-Edition is free for subscribers, or just $7.99 a month. The Bakersfield Californian. We're everywhere and anytime. Subscribe today. Bakersfield.com.
Kern Business Journal contains news and information from local business leaders and organizations. Topics include agriculture, health and medical, energy, real estate, and more. Visit KernBusinessJournal.com to find out how to subscribe or where to pick up a free copy. To inquire about advertising in the bi-monthly Business Journal, call 395-7586. Find us online on Facebook and Twitter, as well as on KernBusinessJournal.com.
And we are back with Pastor Philip Lee from His Way Out Ministries. And
just before we go further,
yes, go ahead.
I just want to say this segment of Open Up is brought to us in part by Kern Construction and Electric Incorporated. There's the phone number, 322-5554. We're talking about the wonderful Robert Miller and specializing in those projects around your home and property. And also, we're brought to you in part by, if you want to get fit, we're talking about bakersfit.com. Bill Robison, the no better place to do it, named the #1 personal trainer in Bakersfield for the past 2 years. We'll be talking more with Bill. Go ahead, Bob.
I want to jump back in. And you mentioned that you don't believe anyone is born, that they are not born that way, and that would contradict Scripture. I fall into the camp of, I don't care whether it's nature or nurture. Do you think anyone chooses to be gay?
I don't believe anyone chooses to have homosexual temptations. I do believe we have a choice of whether or not we act upon those. But once again,
Right.
I know there's a lot of emphasis today on the born that way theory, and it
Right.
is still a theory.
I understand.
And I'm concerned that far too many, including too much of the church, has bought into born that way as being a fact. It's still not proven.
I understand. But you don't believe that people just wake up and think, I just think I'm going to be gay now.
No, I would say it this way. I believe a person awakens, if you will, to their homosexual tendencies. But in my case, as like many others, I awakened to my homosexual tendencies, but at some point, I embraced the gay identity. Right. And those two factors are very, very different.
I understand. How many men do you think have come through your program since you started in 1985?
We're a 20-year-old history.
20 years old. So how many men do you think have come through your program worldwide?
I couldn't even begin to give you a number. I would believe it would be hundreds. And while we do minister with a lot of individuals locally and around the world because of internet, et cetera,
Right.
we also minister with a lot of families. And we're dedicated going around the world to educating and equipping the church so that the church can come alongside these individuals, men and women with unwanted same-sex attraction. It'd be very, very hard to give you a specific number, but I would put it at least in the many hundreds.
Okay, so, all right, so I have a friend, and he is married, chooses to stay married, has children, and I think it's very honorable. To me, when a man comes out as gay and then realizes, oh, I just want to go indulge, or they have the choice, if they're married, to be honorable and stay and endure. I think it's a very honorable choice. And so my friend has made this choice, but he knew I was coming today. And he's a former pastor and still struggles with same-sex attraction. So here's the question that he wanted me to ask you. You identify as ex-gay, am I right?
For lack of a better expression, yes.
Well, what would you call it? What would the better expression be?
I think of myself more as ex-heathen.
Okay, ex-heathen. All right. Okay, I'll take that. And you say that you are no longer attracted to men, and you are completely attracted to women. And I guess that would be the very definition of of ex-heathen or ex-gay. You were telling me as you sit here that all of that is gone and you don't have to fight against that ever?
What I would share with you is that there are times that my past comes up, which admittedly is not that pretty.
Okay.
We do have an enemy.
Right.
He will see to it that things that we did in the past that I'm sure we all wish we could go back and do over.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we cannot. But yes, there are times, things that happened in the past. Yes, do those serve us? Absolutely. Do I desire the same sex? Do I desire to go back to the gay behavior, the gay lifestyle, etc.? No.
Right.
No, I do not.
But just like Paul had a thorn in the flesh, you're not saying that these temptations don't arise at times.
For anyone to say
understand.
that they live completely and totally free of temptation is again a contradiction of Scripture.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
I read your website and all the letters that you send out, and one of the things you were talking about is the concept of sexual purity in our time. I was with a professor of religion, and he just thought it was hilarious that I still use the word fornication. He said, nobody talks about that anymore. What a quaint old word. And yet, couples living together, you have things to say about that. Share that.
Well, again, I think according to Scripture, for all faithful followers of Christ, there are only two appointed options in terms of sexual expression. Number one is a man and a woman, the two becoming one, remaining faithful to one another as a marriage vow states, till death do we part. That's option one. Option two really revolves around a question. The question being, are you single? If the answer is yes, you are not to be sexually active, period. Now go around the world and preach and teach that little number.
Yes.
And I guarantee you, today it's not well received.
You think you might get some pushback?
A bit.
Yeah.
A bit, yes. But that was God's plan from the beginning. And somewhere I read that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. What does that tell us? He hasn't changed. He's not going to change. So what was set forth from the beginning, once again, very clear in Scripture, it's the same today as it has always been.
You know, it is interesting statistically, talking about couples cohabiting and engaging in premarital sex. There is not one single study that supports the value of that. That in fact, it's almost entirely the other way. You're diminishing your chances of a healthy marriage by going that route.
We have been conditioned, especially in this nation, that if you are not sexually active, you could blow up.
Right.
But I'm here to tell you that is not the case. Life will go on. Right. You will be okay. And again, I think this takes us back to why has God been so clear in His Word about those two only options? He's trying to protect us.
Protection. And that protection, you've talked about, it is so poignant, the 20-some young men that you were part of that spent, share that weekend you spent together, young men of all professions. You tell the story. I'm stumbling here.
In 1983, it was a beautiful summer day. We were at the Russian River Resort about 60 miles north of San Francisco. 22 men, average age 25. Gifted men, highly educated. We had a nuclear physicist, registered nurses, teachers, professional artists, and photographers. 22 men, average age 25. My best friend at the time was a professional photographer, and he took a group photograph on this occasion. That was 1983. 22 men, average age 25. And today, they are all gone except myself. The tragedy, of course, is that each man died of AIDS. But I would really submit that the greater tragedy, I wish I could tell you that at least one died knowing Christ. Today, we're not hearing very much at all about the ongoing pandemic, the crisis of HIV and AIDS. I think a lot of people are under the illusion that everything has become much better and things have never been worse. We've seen wonderful advancement in medications that if a person gets on the appropriate medication, they will live a lot longer, could live a very normal lifespan. But today, the reality of HIV and AIDS is still that, very, very real. Again, God's trying to protect us.
You've taken... Go ahead, Bob. No.
Are you familiar at all with the Barna Group, George Barna?
Somewhat.
Okay, so the Barna Group, for those of you that don't know, it is the leading research organization that studies the impact of faith upon our culture. And there was recently a book, 2007, that was written by the president of the Barna Group called Unchristian. And it examined the attitudes that those who do not walk with God have about the church and those who identify as Christians. And one of the questions that was asked of young people, I believe that was a younger folk, that did not have a church background, was what is the first thing that comes to your mind when we say the word Christian? And these are young people that don't have, you probably know where I'm going. One of the top answers that came out from this research was people who hate gay people. And they just said it matter-of-factly. That's 2007. Now we're in 2014. And the rhetoric has gotten even more tuned up. What would you say? How do you see the church today, and how do you see the church interacting with this quote-unquote community?
I completely understand why members of the gay community would not trust the church, why they would even despise, hate Christians. I myself, during those 17 years as a gay-identified man, I had every reason in the world to say, church, I don't think so. Christians, no way. But things turned and changed dramatically. I would be the first to say...
And why was that, Phil? What did you experience that caused you to feel that way?
I really can say I experienced true, unconditional love from the Christian community. Those that knew my background, didn't care, didn't blink an eye, they believed in the power of God to transform a life. I would be the first to say to the gay community, we, the church, owe you an apology.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah. I agree.
We really, really do. We have not done a good job.
Right.
But we cannot apologize, again, for what I believe is the truth of Scripture. Our methods have just been off course horribly from time to time. But we can do a much better job. And that's why I think discussions like we're having right now are so important.
I agree.
You know, and I really believe that when David said of his relationship with Jonathan that it was a love that surpassed that of women, that there really can be a bond of love and trust and emotional intimacy between men that really can be even greater than with a woman. And I fully affirm that.
I'll take it a step further. I believe that if David were sitting here before us today and if Jonathan were sitting here, I don't believe there was a sexual component to their relationship, but I would think they would identify as soulmates. Mm-hmm. I have no issue with soulmates and someone who says, I just want to spend my life with you. Mm-hmm. This is who I want to spend my life with. I think that things go a bit off the rails when the sexual component comes in, and I have thoughts on that. We've got to go.
No, that's right.
Well, no, I can't begin to express those in the limited amount of time we have before break. So why don't we go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back and pick this up in a bit.
All right.
Introducing TBC Mobile from the Bakersfield, California. The most complete news, sports, weather, video, opinion, and lifestyle coverage in Bakersfield and Kern County. It's the easiest way to stay up to date on all things local while on the go. Read it on your smartphone or tablet. Download now by searching Bakersfield Californian in the Apple, Google, and Amazon app stores. Kern Business Journal contains news and information from local business leaders and organizations. Topics include agriculture, health and medical, energy, real estate, and more. Visit KernBusinessJournal.com to find out how to subscribe or where to pick up a free copy. To inquire about advertising in the bi-monthly business journal, call 395-7586. Find us online on Facebook and Twitter, as well as on KernBusinessJournal.com.
Save 50 to 90% with the Bakersfield Californians Daily Deal featured on Bakersfield.com. A daily deal is offered each weekday on services from local restaurants, dry cleaners, health and beauty services, retail shops, and local activities for the entire family. The Daily Deal is 100% local. Find these amazing deals only at dailydeal.bakersfield.com.
Hi, Corey Costello here, host of Roadrunner Rundown, Tuesdays, 10 a.m. right here on Bakersfield.com. It's the official program of CESUB Athletics. We bring you inside the program with interviews with coaches and student athletes. Of course, everybody's favorite Corey versus. I mean, people like to see me in embarrassing athletic situations. And, of course, we'll have all the highlights from around the Roadrunners as well. So join us for Roadrunner Rundown, Tuesdays, 10 a.m. right here on Bakersfield.com.
The Bakersfield Californian is a great read on the iPad, but did you know that the Bakersfield Californian is available on your Kindle Fire? Or how about Google's Nexus 7, the Nook? You bet. You can also read a full replica of the newspaper on your Android-powered smartphone, on Apple's iPhone, or on your laptop. We have a solution for any device. E-Edition is free for subscribers, or just $7.99 a month. The Bakersfield Californian. We're everywhere and anytime. Subscribe today. Bakersfield.com.
We're back. Don Clark here with my buddy Bob Frater, and we're talking about human sexuality, specifically unwanted sexual attraction. Bob?
We were having a fascinating discussion during the break, and I want to continue that, Philip. The contention that I would have is that, again, whether it's nature or nurture, I don't think anyone just says, oh, I think I'm just going to do this. I think I'm just going to be gay. And one of the reasons that I believe that is who would choose a life where the suicide rate is nearly double the national average, where drug addiction, alcoholism, depression, and truly rejection is something that is multiplied beyond the normal population. So what I have found is that there are two things that those who identify as gay have in common, and those are pain and rejection. Pain and rejection, and those become themes that run through life. And some of that is maybe because of how they are, and maybe because of how they've been treated, how they're perceived, and how they perceive themselves. Could you comment on some of this?
Again, I can really, on a very personal level, I believe it was around the age of 13 when I became aware of my homosexual tendencies. I cannot even begin to express to you the shame, the fear that someone might pick up on the fact that I was being attracted to the same sex.
Right.
There was nowhere to go to talk to anyone. This is a long time ago. No one had the expertise that we have today. Fast forward again many years, and based upon my own personal journey and life experiences, the men that I personally knew that tragically, unfortunately, took their own lives, they did not do so because they were addressing their same-sex attraction. They did so because of what, again, for lack of better expression, the gay lifestyle did to them. What we see primarily today in the gay lifestyle in communities around, especially America, the party is often on. I think it's a quest of the individual searching and grabbing for everything they possibly can to fill that void, that emptiness, that deficit in our lives. And I really believe, once again, that the only way that void and that emptiness can be filled in anyone's life is through an intimate, genuine, personal relationship with Christ.
I agree. Are you familiar with Mel White?
I am.
Okay, you've read Stranger at the Gate?
I have not read the book, but I have read some of his other material.
Okay, so he was a presidential speechwriter, and he speaks very plainly about this tension in his life of being attracted to other men,
yes.
and yet loving God with all of his heart, and finding himself running up against these, he was a stranger at the gate. It's interesting to me. I had another pastor in Bakersfield that I was spending time with, and I asked him, I said, can you take me where you go and pull the curtain back for me into your life a little bit? And he was married. And he said, I really don't want to do that, Bob. And I said, why not? And he said, I'm so ashamed. And then I said, come on, Just take me. And so we went. I will never forget this, Philip. It was a January evening in Bakersfield. It was 11 o'clock at night. We had already been to several places, but we finished at 11 o'clock at night in January at Central Park downtown. And it was foggy. You could barely see. It was probably 32 degrees outside. It was frigid. And I said, "What are we doing here?" And he said, "You'll see." And we walked out into that park and barely able to see in front of my face. And then as my eyes adjusted, I saw there was a man sitting on a bench. There was another man standing by a bush, and there was another man standing on a path. And the entire park was filled with men. And my heart began to break. My heart began to break because all of them had one thing in common. Will somebody please touch me and take the pain away, even for a moment, and tell me I'm okay? And so my compassion in this area, I really like Romans 13. Romans 13 says, "Owe no man nothing except to love him." Owe no man nothing except to love him. And then Paul goes through and he identifies these laws. Thou shalt not steal, don't kill, he says all of them can be summed up in one commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says this incredible statement. It's just wild to me. He says, because the entire law, the complete law, is fulfilled in love. Holy moly, Philip. Talk to me about that.
And I know that that is one of the pro-gay arguments, if you will, that since God is love, and he definitely is, then what's wrong with two women partnering or two men? The emphasis is if love is present, then that validates behavior. What's being dismissed is that God is also holy, and he has commanded and called all of his faithful followers to holiness. That's a big order. That's a tall order. It does not happen in our lives overnight. As a matter of fact, holiness is progressive. It's a journey. It's a journey that we are all on till we either go home to be with Christ or he comes back to get us.
Again, we're talking about whether the church is going to be a help or a hindrance in all of this, a resource or a source of rejection. And I just read something on your website about the homosexuals are coming. The homosexuals are coming. Take on the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. Share what you shared on that post.
That actually happened. There was a pastor who called us and said, "Philip, the homosexuals are coming. The homosexuals are coming." I said, "Pastor, great. They can have a seat next to the adulterers, those who were having sex before marriage, those who were lying and stealing. I think it's wonderful." The church is God's vehicle to reach wounded, broken, hurting humanity. That includes men and women struggling with sexual and relational brokenness. And let me be very, very clear. It's not just homosexuality.
Right.
The list of heterosexual sexual addictions would stretch from here to Memphis. But tragically, even in the church, we've got many men and women saying, well, that's on the heterosexual side. That's more normal. Really? Well, I'll go with you to a degree that's more normal, not more acceptable.
Philip, I'm going to ask Chris. Chris, would you put up Philip's website here? Some of you may want to contact Pastor Philip Lee. There it is, www.hiswayout.com. And that's the way to reach you, Philip. What are they going to find when they come to your website, Philip?
They're going to find a wealth of information, articles. We post our monthly newsletter, videos, information about biblical discipleship, a variety of support groups, a wealth of information. A lot of the information changes at the beginning of each month. So I would encourage everyone to revisit at the beginning of each month because we're always posting new information.
You travel the nation actually giving for churches, giving extended seminars on proper responses, loving responses in dealing with this. Talk about that.
We do a great deal of travel here in America and abroad, more specifically in South America and the Caribbean, because a big part of our heart is to educate and equip the church, to give the church tools so they'll be more effective in ministering to these individuals with aspects of broken sexuality.
Why the Caribbean and South America? There's certainly enough to do here in America. Why that?
Many, many, many years ago, before I became the executive director of His Way Out Ministries, which has been my full-time position now for 20 years, Long before I joined His Way Out, I was going overseas on a regular basis on the mission field, teaching and equipping churches in personal evangelism. So we're revisiting many of the places that God originally sent me in the Caribbean and South America. It's really quite intriguing how this has all come about.
Bob, I know you got more questions. Let's hear some.
So you're traveling. What is the purpose when a church invites you? What is the message that you bring?
More than not, when a church invites us, it's for us to come and facilitate a workshop or seminar, to get hands-on training, to talk about this topic as we're talking about right now, and to give them tools, because a lot of people do want to know. They don't want to offend. They don't want to come off as hateful or homophobic and all those other descriptions. People do have a genuine interest in this in becoming better, so that we're not just telling people that this behavior is wrong, but reaching to them. Do we have all the answers? No, I don't have all the answers, but I will go with you to the one who does.
Do you see a difference in this behavior, in gay identified behavior versus, say, a man who is addicted to pornography?
No. Thank you. Because I know many, many, many heterosexual Christian men that have shared with me their own personal areas of brokenness, years of addiction to pornography, years of sex before marriage, habitual adultery. In God's eyes, sin is sin.
Right.
Let's not elevate homosexuality to a place that God has not. What we're seeing, even within the immediate ranks of the church, is an epidemic of sexual brokenness.
Right.
Male, female, adult, teenager, homosexual, heterosexual. And I really believe we're paying a very high, dear price because we have largely refused to talk about this.
Do you see extra heat, extra emphasis, and extra ways that the enemy of our souls uses sexual brokenness as opposed to other sins?
I do, and I think our spirituality and our sexuality are so closely tied.
Why would you say that?
They're just so enmeshed because, as Zon was saying, God created us as sexual beings. Our sexuality is a potent part of who we are. Can you think of a better area of the enemy of our soul to attack?
I agree.
And the carnage, the devastation is widespread.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
You speak of this epidemic. To what sources do you trace this contagion? What's causing this increase that you see? When we talk about an epidemic, something spreading, then something's causing it to spread. What is that?
Largely, I believe, once again, it's because the church has been unwilling to venture into these areas of ministry to help individuals struggling with aspects of their sexuality. Also, in this nation in particular, when it comes to human sexuality, we're lowering the bar and lowering the bar and lowering the bar to where anything and everything is acceptable. There are no longer any boundaries. We have become a nation that has become addicted to feeling good. Feeling good for this nation, in many respects, has become a narcotic.
I remember years ago, my senator from Oregon then, Senator Mark Hatfield, was part of the discussion that was going on in the Senate about legislating, doing away with any discrimination for sexual orientation. And he warned then, he said, when you make sexual orientation that broad, then what about the person who is honestly attracted to children? I mean, that's his honest attraction. How is he to be fulfilled? That's his orientation. What about others? Your thoughts on that?
And again, if we continue to lower the bar, if we're going to base the legitimacy on these various behaviors that they're born that way, they can't help it. Allow them, give them the license to do what they want. Do we see where this is going?
Philip Lee, thanks for being with us. Chris, I'm going to ask you to put Philip Lee's website up one more time. This is the way anyone can contact you. Pastor Philip Lee at hiswayout.com. Philip, thank you for coming on, sharing your journey, and sharing what you're doing with your life these days.
Thank you.
When we come back, it's time to stir the pot again with our open forum. Ed Davis here always has something provocative to say, and we'll hear that when we come back. Bob Prater, great to have you with us on this.
Introducing TBC Mobile from the Bakersfield Californian. The most complete news, sports, weather, video, opinion, and lifestyle coverage in Bakersfield and Kern County. It's the easiest way to stay up to date on all things local while on the go. Read it on your smartphone or tablet. Download now by searching Bakersfield Californian in the Apple, Google, and Amazon app stores. Kern Business Journal contains news and information from local business leaders and organizations. Topics include agriculture, health and medical, energy, real estate, and more. Visit KernBusinessJournal.com to find out how to subscribe or where to pick up a free copy. To inquire about advertising in the bi-monthly business journal, call 395-7586. Find us online on Facebook and Twitter, as well as on KernBusinessJournal.com.
The new book is out. That was easy. I would title this thing sort of a description of what raising children is like. That was easy. I've been writing columns now for about 25 years. Writing has always been a conversation. You're taking somebody by the hand for 3 or 4 minutes and you're not letting go. The new book, That Was Easy. Nothing easy about any of this, but we've had some fun and I hope you guys will have some fun looking at this book.
The Bakersfield Californian is a great read on the iPad, but did you know that the Bakersfield Californian is available on your Kindle Fire? Or how about Google's Nexus 7, the Nook? You bet. You can also read a full replica of the newspaper on your Android-powered smartphone, on Apple's iPhone, or on your laptop. We have a solution for any device. E-Edition is free for subscribers, or just $7.99 a month. The Bakersfield Californian. We're everywhere and anytime. Subscribe today. Bakersfield.com.
Save 50 to 90% with the Bakersfield Californian's Daily Deal featured on Bakersfield.com. A daily deal is offered each weekday on services from local restaurants, dry cleaners, health and beauty services, retail shops, and local activities for the entire family. The Daily Deal is 100% local. Find these amazing deals only at dailydeal.bakersfield.com.
And we are back. Thanks again to Pastor Philip Lee from His Way Out Ministries. And Don, what is next?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, as we always do, thanks to Nature's Market and Juice Bar. Wonderful folks. They're moving over to the old Henley's location across in the Fox. You're really going to want to get to know these people. They'll get you healthy. And also, thanks to Denise Haddock. Every week brings in these beautiful decorations. Denise, thanks so much. You know, we in Kern County live and have always lived on the cutting edge of aerospace.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was some of the most exciting advances in aerospace test flights. It's all happened right here in our backyard. We're very proud of that part of our history and heritage and ongoing development here in Kern County. And Ed Davis is here to talk about, what's happening with our space exploration efforts by NASA. What's going on, Ed? And tell us your thinking on it.
Well, I think we've all been at least somewhat aware that because of budget constraints, the consideration of defunding major portions of NASA has in fact been put in place, and I try to do everything I can to not be political. My point simply is that as a scientist, I hate to see things like this, these major think tanks like this being taken away from us. So when Eisenhower in 1958 started NASA, he basically wanted to make sure that we were in fact on the cutting edge of not necessarily space exploration, but technology. Because without technology, we won't go to space and we won't be able to do anything. Just like, for example, say, our ink pens today, our push-button ink pens, that's a product of NASA. And when I graduated from college, we used slide rules. This hadn't even been invented yet. So I didn't have this, much less you heard my cell phone go off a little bit earlier. These things all came from, the roots of these things came from NASA efforts. They have over 1,650 patents themselves, with at least 50 new patents a year on products having nothing to do with space. They have to do with things that we use every day, just like these microphones we're talking into and the cameras that are here. The lighting, everything about this stuff came from the think tanks emanating from NASA and all of the efforts therein. So it really is a difficult thing. When John F. Kennedy said, within this decade, we will put a man on the moon. And that challenge was fulfilled in 1969. And sure, we wanted to be the first man on the moon, but that's not what he was saying. He was saying we have to invent the technology, we have to develop the capacity to do it, and then we got to do it. So that challenge that he made had a lot to do with putting a man on the moon, but he actually made sure that we understood that NASA's function was to invent goods and services that we use every day, all of us, everywhere, including these tables that we are leaning on. So at the end of the day, I've always been a strong advocate of the profound amount of technology that comes from NASA, and really feel terrible that they have been pretty much defunded and basically kicked out in the street at some level. So I would like to read some of the things that they have done that have little to do with space, like LED lights emitting diodes for medical therapies. They have developed hearing aid systems, heart pumps, artificial limbs, invisible braces like you use on your teeth type of a thing. Anti-icing for airplanes, that all came from it. Improved radial tires emanating from the shrouds that held the actual parachutes that let these astronauts glide gently down into the water. That product is 5 times stronger than steel, and that's what all of our radials are now, just emanating again from the efforts and energies from NASA. Video enhancing equipment, I mean, these cameras we're looking at are directly related to efforts and energies of NASA. Firefighting equipment, memory foam, the Tempur-Pedic type beds, NASA. Enrichment in baby food, completely changed packaged food all over the world, water purification, freeze drying, solar cells. And again, all these things, we just continue to have thousands and thousands of different computer software. I've got we use slide rules in college. These little handheld calculators weren't even invented. And to me, it's absolutely fascinating. Remote control, and dramatically improved food safety programs. And all of the spin-offs that came from them are thousands and thousands. There are over 2,000 of different spin-off products that have come from NASA just within the last 4 years, because companies pick up things that NASA, and then they improve them and they build widgets for our everyday usage. Probably a good chance at that.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So at the end of the day,
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question. Curious mind starts to go.
You bet.
Are you familiar with Elon Musk?
Certainly.
SpaceX, and so he's privatizing some of the space industry.
Yes.
Is it not possible that even as NASA is defunded, all these wonderful inventions might continue? I mean, why does it have to be NASA that are you following me?
Certainly. To privatize this is absolutely an excellent idea, and it also removes it from an open forum like NASA was, because simply NASA was involved in a lot of things. The gentleman you're speaking of, and also the people who are out there that own Virgin Airlines, and everybody else is doing this. They're trying to do one specific thing. NASA was and continues to be an open forum of scientific minds to help in all segments of life, not necessarily the $25 million it would cost you and or I to fly and go up on the space station for 4 days. $25 million bucks.
Sure.
It's a business.
I understand.
That's not what NASA has been all along. And even in the paper today, the thought of us losing somebody like Bill Dana, who was in fact an X-15 pilot and broke one record after another, getting us ready for the space race in 1963 and through 1967. These are local guys, and we've been tied to these guys all of our lives. And it's just a shame that this focus is going in a different direction, that is no longer an open forum, because the people who, from Virgin Airlines, they're not going to make this pen better.
Right.
They're in it for the money. They're not in it, and I have nothing wrong with that.
Well, yeah, but whoever invented that pen is making money. So, I mean, somebody's going to invent something. Someone like Elon Musk, I mean, they're not taking people, they're launching satellites, and they're subcontracting from NASA.
Ed,
Certainly.
we've got 30 seconds. What would you say to our senators about funding NASA?
It's absolutely a shame that they are defunding NASA. There's got to be somewhere else we can cut, because NASA has been fundamental in keeping us at the top rung of the technological world for 2 generations.
All right.
It's a shame.
There we go. Ed Davis, you've always got something, you add real value every time you come on this show. And Bob, it's always a treat and a privilege whenever you sit in that chair.
What a hoot it is every
thanks
time.
for coming. Philip Lee, thanks for that. Tina Miller sitting patiently off camera this time around. Tina, see you next week, and hope you'll join us next week. Thanks for being here. We're going to have John Gwynn, one of the greatest city managers Kern County has ever had, share his wisdom. We'll see you next week.
See you.